Hi, I'm Matt from HockeyReviews.ca, and this is the CCM Eflex 5 pad snapshot review. I have this stuff here just as a tease. We have the Eflex 5 Pro shoulder pads, and obviously the Eflex 5 blocker and catching glove. I'll have separate snapshot reviews on each of those. This video is just specifically on the pads themselves. So obviously this isn't my set, it's a set from a store, so I can't do a bunch of testing on it like rebounds or sliding or using it on ice, unfortunately. So all I can do is the snapshot review like this. But we're gonna talk about all the features and everything on that. So I wanna tease this before we get anywhere else. There's something on this pad that I sincerely believe could be the future of goalie pads and kind of the future of a lot of hockey equipment going forward. It's one of the reasons I really wanted to grab this pad and this line to see what they did with it and to see where they might be going with it. CCM in the past has kind of used little teases on their gear to kind of see what is, or kind of hint at what is going to come in the future. That being on the Eflex 4 where they started the screen printing. When that was out, I said they're going to do custom graphics in the future. And now we've seen custom graphics on the Eflex 5 for the World Juniors, as well as the Axis set like David Rittich and other professional goalies out there. So I have a feeling there's a little tease in this pad, and it might be something that becomes big in the goalie world. It might be the future of goaltending pads, so that makes me really excited. This video or any of my videos you find are helpful in helping you make a purchase or just getting you interested in gear, please reach out to the manufacturer and let them know on social media. In this case specifically, CCM and CCM Goalie on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that. Link them the video or say, hey, this video is really helpful. It helps me get on their radar, and because I would love to test these and see how they play on the ice, same with the shoulder pads, same with the gloves, but I can't do that and I can't buy every set of equipment every year to do it. I don't even want like actual custom sets for me to keep. I would just like a demo set that I know they have for retail stores for me to try them out, to get them on the ice, be able to actually talk about the gear and actually do like rebound tests, stuff like that. So if you find this video helpful, or if it helps you make a purchase, please reach out to CCM and let them know. It'd be greatly appreciated on my end. Now, before we start this video, if you want to support the channel so I can keep making content like this and doing more reviews and not just snapshot reviews, check out the links in the description to Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee. Everything that goes through there will come right back into the channel so I can keep doing videos and making more content of actual gear reviews. Otherwise, if you want to support the channel and you live in the United States, check out the link to Pure Goalie and Pure Hockey. Clicking link, making purchase gives me a kickback, so it helps support the channel. And you're buying hockey stuff anyways, so that would be greatly appreciated. So I was really excited about this line because I wanted to see what CCM was going to do differently than what True and Lefevre did. This is the first CCM actual product that the split really was official for. If you look at the Axis, there's a lot of 20.1 in the Axis. Both the pads are kind of a similar idea behind them. This is really where CCM is doing their thing and Lefevre is doing their thing, and sorry, the True is doing their thing with the 12.2s. This thing is basically continuing the Eflex 4 line, whereas the 12.2 is kind of going in its own direction and kind of doing something slightly different. That's pretty interesting to me, and I think it's a kind of a good thing because it is giving people kind of double options now, and that's always a good thing. One of the big things about this pad that I have to give CCM huge amounts of credit to is what they're doing with the custom options. So this pad for custom still has the double internal brakes and double external brakes available on it, which isn't offered anymore on the True lines. So CCM is kind of keeping what they've done in the past for retail, and that's, in my opinion, a very good thing. This pad is, honestly, it's kind of stiff. It's not super soft. It bends, obviously, below the knee pretty good. But for stock above the knee, it's not super soft. But that double brake really helps to do that. This doesn't have an internal brake up here. You can see how the brake is like right there, and right here it's just a single internal. Having that double will really make this a lot softer for people who want to be able to like crush this more to make it more rounded, and to just have a little more flex above the thigh rise. So props to CCM there for still offering that custom option. As for the side of the pad, the boot is still extremely soft. It doesn't really flex out a lot, but it is soft when you squish it down. You can really see how much this part bends down. And this is one of the softer boots, if not the softest boot I've ever really seen in a retail pad. My Warrior ones are softer in the other way, but this is like super soft, and that's how my Eflex 4s were. So before we get into anything important, we're going to talk about graphics really quick because it doesn't matter at all but people still buy pads because of graphics and you want to look good. These are so close to being really good. So close to being really good. I think the pads are actually very good. I like the little details they're adding all throughout the pad here, the little Eflex kind of logo hidden in there, and the little details they're adding with their UV printed design. I also like the lines, how they do the lines up here, and you can have the separate options here. I think they did a really good job in that. I understand a lot of people are disappointed about how this doesn't ever line up. I get that, and how this line never goes all the way through and it's kind of cut off. I totally get that. My problem with this pad though is not the pads or the blocker, it's how the glove doesn't match at all. And I'll show some pictures of what I mean. If you ever use any of the designs down here, they just don't show up on the glove and really just disappointing. I think CCM did a really good job on these pads, and the Markstrom pads and the Demko pads look really good. But once you add that mismatching glove, it's kind of a rough look. But in the reality, graphics aren't really an important thing in the grand scheme of things. So we'll move on to stuff that actually really matters. The thing I am most excited about this pad, and the reason I think this might be the future of goalie pads, is the molded roll foam. So this is the first time, at least that I can remember, and for sure recently, that a company has used exposed foams on the face of a pad. And I mentioned how a lot of people hated how the graphics don't line up here and how this is always one solid single color. It looks weird, but having this one roll be an exposed piece and acting differently from the rest of the pad gives me a lot of hope in what CCM might be doing in the future. You watched my Eflex 4 video before, and you watched my videos on how I said that CCM was really disappointing last year basically and in the past. This is what I was talking about. CCM has had molded foams on their protective gear for player gear for years now, and they totally ignored it on their goalie line. And now on what is really their very first real pad design by itself, the first thing that shows up is a molded foam piece right on the knee rolls. I don't know why they didn't do it for all the rolls. Now, I have a theory that the reason that this is here and only on one is they're testing to see what the public's perception of this is. I don't know if they have the UV printing, which is all that stuff down there, capabilities of putting on molded foam. So I looked it up, and according to a bunch of the people who sell the printers and the ink and the process, you can UV print on molded foams and it works fine. I'm not sure how well it works though, because I know that there is companies that have done molded foams for stuff like STX with lacrosse gloves and in the future player gloves, where it has to be kind of spray painted or like painted on, and it's not the same type of look as using like a Gen Pro or printing. So I'm not sure if that's a possibility yet, but I have a theory that this is to test to see what the public thinks of this and to see if it's okay to come out with in the future. This piece is softer than all these other pieces, and this pad is made up of the Control Rebound, which as you can see is really soft. So this is the soft rebound version of this pad, and yet this foam piece is softer than all the other foam pieces. Seems like this is a benefit. Why don't you just use this on the other one? I think it should have been used throughout. But I'm going to give CCM a little bit of leeway here because doing this is, in my opinion, kind of risky. And also, in my opinion, a very good move for the future. A lot of goalies are super conservative in terms of look. Every time a new pad comes out, people hate it. They always say the graphic sucks. I'm saying this graphic sucks, but I'm saying the pad graphic's really good. It's just the mismatch doesn't work. I also like trying different things and changing stuff out. It's very clear the hockey community isn't like that. Having an exposed foam that doesn't match the rest of the pad is a risk. I'm glad CCM took it because this is pretty cool. One of the things that I don't get at all about that exposed foam though, is if you go with the Max Rebound core, so now you can get a Max Rebound core in this pad, so you get bigger rebounds, but an Eflex design. So this is the stuff that's in the Axis, which is much firmer, as you can see there, compared to this much softer. So this will be so much harder than this one. So theoretically, all the foams here will be the Max Rebound core, which is all really stiff and really firm. And so that will be firm. Unfortunately, I didn't have an opportunity to see an Eflex pad with the Max Rebound here. Only these ones would have the Control. And then you come here and it's super soft. So seeing that difference is kind of confusing to me, but I'm happy CCM is going a different route and offering those 2 rebound faces on it. It's a nice custom option and it's available to pros, so it should be available to retail. Another thing I wanted to cover about the face of the pad with the knee rolls is they said they flattened out the knee rolls and they did this shape. I don't know why they did this shape. Whatever reason they give this shape, they did it because it's different. It doesn't help with flex or anything like that. It just flexes normally because this part doesn't actually flex a pad. The core is flexing the pad. It's all just look. So I don't know why they did the weird looking shape on it. I think they should have just stuck normal because people don't like it and people have commented on it, but whatever, it's different. Maybe the Eflex 6 won't have this and then the Eflex 5 will be the only one. So you'll be able to point out pros that are using old gear. So one thing I want to give as a warning of this pad before we get into a lot of other things is this knee block, when it came out of the box from the store, it's actually angled. So you can see how that is where the knee block should be pointing out as, where this one is totally flat here and this is going in. I changed it on this one and fixed it so you can see how it's equivalent, and this one is not at all. You have to basically make this adjustment before you really wear this pad because this isn't really doing it any favors, and that kind of shows it off. You can see how they're not even at all, and that's going inwards. Basically, all you have to do to adjust that, pull that out, straighten it out, slap it back on. Now it is the same. So that's it. So I don't know if this was like a manufacturing thing or what was going on with that. That made a big difference. I was looking at them and, well, one, I noticed when it was like that, it was actually easier to bend because this wouldn't get in the way as much, where now this will kind of get in the way for, as you can see. But that is how that knee block is supposed to be. It's not supposed to be inwards like that. So just make sure you make that adjustment before really playing. So this is basically the CCM overall shape and a pretty good look at it for the Eflex at least. You do have that a little bit more rounded thigh rise right here with that break happening at the knee, and then you do have the thicker shin here. Again, this is just more of a traditional style of pad from CCM. Vaughn still has a pretty thick piece right here for the velocity line, whereas a lot of other companies are going a bit smaller there. Bauer Ultrasonic is also thicker here versus Vapor, which is smaller. Again, just personal preference thing. The boot here is still pretty thick though too compared to those other companies, but we'll talk about the underside boot in a little bit. One of the more important parts of the pad is the sliding surface on here, and I've had awful experiences with Speedskin, and honestly with CCM pads in the past. The axis weren't bad, they were just and right now, in my opinion, that's not good enough for pads because every pad is basically pushing the sliding abilities, and in my experience, CCM hasn't done that at all, and Speedskin hasn't helped, and the axis wasn't great. I can't comment on these, obviously. Unfortunately, I can't test these out. I can't bring them on ice and can't use them. But I'm going to give a bit of an overview of my experience with Axis and my experience with Premier 2s in the past and my experience with Eflex 4s. I have a range of pads and materials with basically everyone so far on the market. I have Warrior G5s with just straight up Gen Pro. I have my JRZ Fusions with Weave. I have my Bauer pads with the Cortec. I have the Brines pads with the Opti Slide, which is primo for them. I've worn the Vaughn pads with the Quick Slide, which is kind of also a primo, but with a coating. I've worn Axis pads with Speedskin. I've worn Eflex 4s with Weave. So I've basically used everything there is out there and comparing them. And just to be blunt, the Axis weren't very good. They were just okay. My JR sleeves slid better. My Warriors slide better. What I've noticed on the Speedskin specifically is it's very particular on when it slides good, and then it gets stickier based on the ice conditions. What I noticed with the Axis was it was okay overall, but once it got on wet ice, it was actually pretty quick. Once that ice started getting degraded and getting choppy, it fell off pretty fast and it got pretty sticky. If you were on dry ice, but it wasn't wet, so it was ice that was resurfaced and just left for a few hours or so. So it was totally flat, totally smooth, but dry. They were sticky. There's only really one good time, an ideal time for Speedskin to work, and that was when the ice was wet and kind of fresh. And then once it gets worse, it got worse over time. This does look different to me than what the Eflex 4 was. It's not an extremely hard sliding edge. You can still see how it kind of pushes in. I've noticed a lot of companies are going to harder and harder faces to kind of help with sliding. The more give you have on the side of the face, technically the more energy transfer will go into that give, so you'll lose possible speed. The other thing that is pretty firm too is this piece right here, but I do remember that being pretty solid on my Eflex 4s as well. Same with this piece. Well, you can bend it a bit. It is pretty firm, and this one is definitely firm there. And as you can see here, pretty firm overall. And once you really Velcro that up, it's going to stay pretty firm. I really wish I could talk about sliding on these, but unfortunately I can't, because I mentioned in my Axis video, I would be happily wearing an Axis if they slid better. The pad worked really well for me. The style worked well for me, but they just don't have the slide that my other pads had. So there's no reason to go down that route. So CCM does have speed skin here as another part, because this part is going to be on the ice. So it is nice that it is their Gen Pro material right here. But I still am disappointed that this piece right here also doesn't have Gen Pro, because when I had my Eflex 4s, this piece got soaked. And this piece was dragging on the ice. It had ice buildup all along it. Not that that's, I think, is slowing down the pad by any means, but nylon on ice doesn't necessarily wear the best. So if this was a piece of just Gen Pro or leather down here, it would have been better in that sense. So really quickly, an overview of what speed skin is. It's Gen Pro, but with a texture to it. It's the same material, but it's just a different embossing to it, and you can hear it. And you're gonna see a lot of stores, and I'm gonna kind of overlay some Instagram accounts of stores with their custom sets using weave on the inside, because I feel like that's kind of the standard for a lot of companies, and people have been finding, customers have been ordering weave on the inside over speed skin as well. I think CCM really needs to step away from this. It's not helping their cause. There's always questions about how speed skin is. And if there's such a controversial opinion on it, there's some people that say it's the best thing ever, and then other people say it's terrible. It's not working. Where no one is going to say Vaughn Quick Slide is terrible, because it's not. It's amazing. Same with Bauer Cortec. No one's going to say it's terrible, because it's good. But when there's so many bad opinions about this, you got to change something. And I really think they got to get rid of that. So one thing I really want to see CCM try with not only speed skin, but with whatever materials they're going to use for sliding, is to try the UV printing on the sliding surface itself. Theoretically, UV printing shouldn't flake or really come off. And when you do touch it, it does have a different type of texture and feeling to it than the speed skin. So when you run your nail along it like you would with the speed skin, it definitely feels like it has less grip to it when you do that. So I'm curious to see if that would translate to on the ice as well. I think CCM needs to try something to be on par with other companies now. But the interesting thing is there is different types of, I don't know if this is the UV printing specifically, but the parts right here are much grippier, as well as where like the CCM hidden logo is here. These spots are much grippier than the parts around them. So it's kind of interesting at how some of the pieces feel totally different, and then other ones feel more slippery. One thing I want to cover on this, and this happened when I would put this pad on and look down on it, is how strangely not straight this edge is. So you can see it there, and when I look down, look at that knee. And you can see how it kind of bumps out, and you can see it down here. I don't know if this is going to do anything on ice. I don't know why this isn't totally straight and even all the way through, and it kind of bulges, and it's also like not equivalent of how far it sticks out the whole way, which is kind of weird. People were pointing this out on the goalies in the World Juniors, and it was odd to me. And then it's here too, and so it's kind of the whole thing here where it's not totally straight and it's kind of bumpy, and I don't know why that is. We'll look at it sealing at another time. It's just something I noticed, and it was something I really noticed when looking down at the pad like this when they were on my leg. So it's something I want to call out because it's different and I haven't really seen it before. So going on to the leg channel, this is a fairly tight channel. CCM does have a lot of options for this, so I got to give them huge credit. Like they do have the super tight leg channel. This one is just, I'm pretty sure, the tight. You can see how it does have that gap there, and it will wear pretty snug. With that said, it does have a pretty decently customizable strapping system. With this piece is pretty good because you can adjust it here as well, or just honestly you can just take this out totally if you wanted to and just run with this and wear a more loose channel depending on how you prefer. The one thing I want to say that is slightly disappointing to me, a lot of the pads now are coming with pillows down here to kind of help push the pad down. When I use the Eflex 4s, that was something I noticed that a lot of pucks would squeak through compared to some other pads I wore, and squeak through specifically like under here. This doesn't really have much to assist with that. You do have the 3 kind of layers, but they're not super thick, and they're all kind of standard, to be honest. I wish this strapping had a little bit more to it and maybe a little more of a pillow here. Now, obviously this is personal preference thing, and the Hyperlights went that way and I was happy about it, but I don't think CCM has really something on the market, which a lot of other companies do now. Brian's does with their pillow, Hyperlights do with their pillow. So I think this one is kind of missing with that. And the True Lefevre pads have their FRS system, which is kind of similar. And the other thing is CCM doesn't really have the Professor strap. This is kind of their closest option to it. And honestly, it's not really the same. It's an okay strapping system. It's their quick motion strapping, and it's fine. It works fine. It's just not anything really new or spectacular. This is pretty standard for the CCM Eflex line. Like, it's been on there for the last one. It's pretty similar to the Axis as well. The liner, as you can see, is just this nylon, and it's a textured nylon. It looks good. It's fine. The leg channel, again, just standard nylon, nothing crazy here. It is super soft, so I want to give them credit for that. So it is padded all the way through right here. And when we look on this side right here, again, standard nylons with your strap going right there. And just to open it up, you can see right here. So nothing really crazy in this this area right here, just pretty standard to what it was before. And it's totally fine. So one thing that's disappointing to me on this pad, and you can see it on the Hyperlights and the Ultrasonics, is the lack of molded foams outside of this. I love that this is here. This is great, great idea. Why isn't it anywhere else? So this whole back piece could be a molded foam. This is obviously fine and it will do its job. But if you just have it one piece of foam instead of nylon around it, it should be lighter overall. You can make it thicker. You can do different densities with it. So I think they really miss an opportunity by doing this here. They kind of have started to add it to their gloves. And I really think they should have gone this route and added it here as well. Hopefully it will be coming in the future. I'm glad we're seeing it on the pad face. I think that's really awesome. But this really could have been something a little bit better. Obviously it is kind of here, but it's not quite to the extent that I think they could have utilized it. CCM once again does a really good job with all their straps. So this has a nice nylon, even with the nylon binding edge on it too. So it's more than just nylon, with a speed skin piece here and this little nice rubber tab, which is a really nice strap setup. Same with on the inner piece here. Same thing with that little rubber type tab. And finally, a slightly different one with elastic on the knee block. It's interesting how they have 3 different versions here. I mentioned that on the Axis, but CCM and Bauer do this really well, where some other companies kind of skimp on this. And it's just nice little touches that CCM does well on these. Going up to the knee block, you have a removable piece flap on the outside, which can go up and down. Totally fine, or you can take it off and just go down here as well. CCM also has a ton of knee flap options for this, which I got to give them credit to. They have a really customizable pad, and they've been really good at that. Something like Bauer has kind of lacked in the past. They're getting better at it. This obviously isn't the level of Brian's or Vaughn where you can do absolutely everything, but it's still really good, especially for the retail market, because they show the catalog of everything you can do. Huge credit to CCM there, or props, as I say. The knee block is their interesting foam thingamajig. I can't remember what this is called. I think it works pretty well. I had no problems with it. It's slightly grippy. It's slightly padded. It does feel like a molded foam throughout. Again, I love molded foam, so you're not going to go wrong there. Opening the block up to just show it, there is your connection, which is just really standard all the way through. And on the other side, same thing. Nothing crazy here. Just a standard knee block design. No crazy thing going through the face of the pad or anything like that. You can see how it does kind of move a lot, where a lot of companies have been trying to like make this harder, and so it's more reactive. This isn't really the case. As you can see, it moves quite a lot. Bauer's is much stiffer. Warriors is much stiffer. It's a personal preference thing. It's, in my opinion, it's a little bit overblown on how important it is. You can kind of do stuff with strapping to make it work really well and kind of make the pad work like that. Interesting thing CCM did this year was add this piece of speed skin down the inside of the pad right here, showing CCM. I think this looks great. Specifically, it looks great because it looks awesome in NHL goalies. Markstrom has his awesome set with yellow down here, and it looks great, and you can instantly know what it is, and it's kind of a unique look. I say it's kind of a unique look because obviously Ultrasonics have something like this right down their pad too, and Ultrasonics came out first. But the Ultrasonic one isn't crazily colored in like yellow when this is white and stuff like that. Toe ties on this, I want to give CCM credit because I think these are basically the best toe ties on the market besides the True Lefevre ones, which are pro laces. These are bungee cord, but does have that thicker kind of coating to it. And these straps are nice in terms of how they worked. I really like these. And I also bought a set to use on my Brian's because, again, these work well and it's a good design. So again, props to CCM there. It is nice how you can adjust them to be offset or straight on for there. These pads obviously don't have the bootstrap in it. Stock retail, I don't think do. I think it's an option, but it works the same way as Eflex 4 does. I have a video showing that, which I'll kind of put in the corner right here. So if you need to take that out or put it in, that will explain how to do it. So the rare boot channel, this is going away in the hockey goalie world. I talked about this on the Hyperlight video, where theirs is basically just total tabletop design now with a slight raised edge on the inside. This one is still a full-blown boot channel. You can really see how thicker it is here, and your boot skate sits right in there, and how it's kind of padded too, as you can see, pretty squishy. And just look at that. Look how thick that is. Look at the groove. This doesn't really exist anymore. A lot of pads are going away from that, and they're doing that because it pushes the pad up on the skate. CCM is stuck with an old design with this, which is fine because I think there's a market for it. Same with the Von Velocity, very similar in terms of having a boot channel and everything. So I'm going to give CCM credit there because this does really distinct this line with the Axis line by having this really defined boot channel and being more traditional in that sense than what other pads are doing. And it's just giving options, and I'm always okay with that. One thing I hate about the goalie world and hockey world is the marketing aspect of it, because a lot of people will put pads into certain groups when they kind of shouldn't. This is considered a soft pad. The pad itself, the core is very stiff, and as you can see here, zero flex, extremely stiff core. It's going to hold up to shots and everything like that. It's going to be durable in terms of that. Flex isn't that soft. This one is kind of medium, I would say. It does take a lot of force to kind of squish it there. Obviously, you can get a double break to make it softer. It does have pretty dead rebounds on this one specifically because it has that control rebound core on it. The boot is also fairly soft. But the core of this pad overall isn't that soft. So people always talk about torsional flex. That's me trying to flex this pad as much as possible and trying to bend it over. There's not a lot there. This core is fairly stiff overall. People would always say the Warrior G4s are the stiff pad and the GT is the soft line. The Warrior G4 is bend in half when you do that. My Warrior G5 is kind of bend in half when you do that. This doesn't really go anywhere. There it goes a bit more. That way it doesn't go anywhere. This core on this pad, and CCM advertises it as the dual light core built for maximum flexibility and optimal pad seal. The flexibility isn't massive on this. It's still a stiff core. It's not a problem. It's totally fine. There's still only a few soft pads on the market. Genetic's a pretty soft pad, and the Von Velocity and kind of SLR are kind of soft pads overall, and I would say they're still softer than what this is. So the seal of the pad, as you can see, is very good. CCM has been really good at this for quite a while now. I've had some people bring up that this pad changed something to improve the seal. I always kind of question that because I've always found CCM pads to seal well, and when they don't, it's more of how the goalies break in the pad and basically squish them and make them like lean on them, and that's when the thigh rise comes up. So that's kind of like a Brian Elliott thing. Stock, these work well, and you can even fold them to still seal really well on the ice. So I have no issues with these, and these do a good job in that. Again, CCM is very good at that. Even when you push down on the boot, you can see that seal is still very good. Overall, I'm pretty impressed with this pad. I legitimately think CCM might be onto something with this exposed foam piece on there, and I really hope that they go down that path. If this pad didn't have speed skin and had something else, I would maybe look into buying it, but it doesn't mean it's a bad pad, and I firmly believe that this has a place on the market, and I'm happy it exists, especially with True taking away their 12.1 style of pad and going strictly 12.2 for the retail market. I think that's a kind of a poor decision just to give this option. You're still making it for the pros. Make it for retail too. This pad offers a softer double break option, which while the Hyperlight is getting kind of there, this with the double break is kind of on a different level, more Vaughn-esque, with a really soft face, which is also, that's kind of being limited now. There's not many pads that do offer a very dead face like this, and a ton of customizable options in terms of the calf, the strapping and stuff like that. So I got to give CCM a lot of props for that because they're doing that still pretty well. I also think they legitimately are changing things on their gear now that they split away from Lefevre, and I think that's an interesting thing, and I'm really looking forward to the future. This molded foam has me so excited, and I really hope this is the future and that this is just the test bed. If they can find a way to do this molded foam as the whole face or the whole core of the pad, and you just do segments to break it up, you will have a pad that's significantly lighter than anything else. It would be lighter than this, and this is already a very light pad. It would all just be one piece all throughout. If that happens, that's going to be absolute game changer, and I really want to see it. The only thing I'm a bit hesitant on is how are they going to make that type of material slide if they did go down that route, because this thing is more grippy than the speed skin is itself. So that's something that they would have to kind of figure out and fix in that regards and make a change there. But this molded foam has me so excited. I want to see an entire face with this stuff. I want to see the entire pad built with it, the core of the pad built with that. If you are an Eflex person and it's the thing you love and you want to stay in it, these pads, there's nothing else on the market like these pads in my opinion. I don't think they will slide the best because I'm still not happy with speed skin, but the pad is kind of a unique combination of everything, and it doesn't have like a 5-month wait time or longer that True has to get their stuff out right now. So it definitely has its place, and it's definitely worth checking out. And I'm really excited to see what they do with these in the future. So that's about it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully it was helpful. If you did find this helpful, and if this helped you with your purchase at all, please reach out to CCM and CCM Goalie on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, anywhere on social media. Let them know that this video and that I was helpful, helps me get on their radar. So hopefully one day I can actually get demo sets of these and actually test them instead of just doing this video and making content like this. I would be able to give more feedback to customers and give opinions in that sense instead of testing actual features. Like, I would love to be able to test out the rebounds on these different pieces, which I will be able to do in the future because of something I have coming down the lines, but not from a pad that I don't actually own. So that is something I want to keep doing, and reaching out to them would greatly help the channel, and I would be greatly appreciated. Now, if you want to also support the channel and you live in the United States, check out the link in the description to Pure Hockey and Pure Goalie. Clicking that link, making a purchase, gives me a kickback. So if you're buying hockey gear anyways, it helps just support the channel and nothing happens to you besides clicking that link. Otherwise, if you're not in the United States and you want to help support the channel, check out the links to Buy Me a Coffee and Patreon. Everything through that will come right back into this channel so I can keep doing actual gear reviews and making more content. Unfortunately with this stuff, because I am borrowing it, I can't use it and I can't actually give real usage feedback. I can only talk about my perceptions of it and how just the different features and stuff like that. But yeah, so thank you very much for watching. Hopefully it was helpful, and take it easy.
You're watching HockeyReviews.ca.